I saw you guys did last month you did a race, right? For was it 100? I forget what it was now. 100-mile race or something like that, or not?
Well, no, I'm getting ready for that.
Okay.
Yeah, what it is in May, I'm supposed to run 100 miles to raise charity for this orphanage. So what we did last month was we just called it a training day. We have a church that's about 30 minutes from where we live, where they've been without a pastor, I want to say 9 years.
Okay.
And say 6 years ago, I met one of the deacons, and he was American, his wife's Japanese. And through him, we got to know the church, and I spoke there a few times and got to meet their other deacons and just everyone in the church. It's a small church, maybe 12 to 15 people. As we got to know him, several times he mentioned their church 25 to 30 years ago had started this orphanage in India. And I don't know the story of how they had the connections, but it's in southeast India. It's a pretty dry part. They have a lot of problem with famine and not enough rain, things like that. And as long as they had their previous pastor, he had different connections, and they had 5 or 6 churches that all kind of banded together, and they supported the orphanage fairly well. Yeah. Well, when he left, they slowly lost those connections, and the church had no leadership. So the orphanage has come under hard times, and what happened is they ended up having to take out loans to buy rice and just basic necessities. Yeah. So they owe about $6,000, and then their basic situation needs to change. The person who led the orphanage died. He was a pastor in India, an Indian pastor. He died about 3 years ago. And from that time, it has gotten worse because then they have lacked leadership. Right. So, well, as I thought about it and prayed about it, we'd had family concerts a couple of times to raise money for them. But, $600-700, well, they really need like $1,000 a month to buy food. So I came up with this idea of doing this run. Said, well, let's try to raise $20,000. Yeah. 6,000 to 7,000 of that's the loan. We need to get that off the books. Right. About 4,000 to 5,000 of it, really, they need somebody to go visit the orphanage and help them get some kind of leadership there, because they definitely are having trouble managing money and even making decisions. So they need some kind of, better instruction with leadership. And then the rest of that 20,000 needs to be, they have a farm they bought, probably 10 or 15 years ago. And they've regularly not had quite enough resources to make it really work. And so we'd like to have enough where we can actually make some steps to get them out of the hole they're in, and get in a better place to go forward. And this was the best idea I could think of, because it's our concerts and stuff. We just don't have the money here in Japan to do it. And I don't know. I at the moment I'm thinking, well, this is a terrible idea because it requires
so much work,
effort from me.
So is there any like for me, I think, and I think God's doing this with all of us, right? Using this time to maybe help us grow spiritually, reconnect with Him, realize we really are dependent on Him. Our plans are really not aren't going to happen, and we don't obviously know the future and how all this is going to turn out. So, are there verses or practices you're doing to build your connection with God, or to remind you to stay dependent on Him during this time? Or
yeah, actually, you remember when our first child died?
Yeah.
At that time, to me, it was there were some similar questions. And the questions we have anytime there's a difficulty in life, it comes down to our faith. Mm-hmm. And the question that really comes down to is not so much do we have faith or not, but who do we have faith in? Mm-hmm. So ultimately, when I have looked at this, back when our child died, Susan and I were in the hospital, and the doctor came in and said, well, your child's we're sorry, he's passed away. And then he left us to, deal with it before he had to come back and go the next steps.
Yeah.
But we did that. And Susan and I turned to each other and said, we have said that we believe, that we have faith that God is who He says He is, that we can trust Him, and all these things. So I said, well, what we need to do is go back and examine who God is, because we said we've trusted Him. And if He is worthy of our trust, then we're going to come out okay. And so at that time, what we committed to do was spend a year together and individually to search through the Bible and say, what do we know about God? How has he revealed himself? What does he have to say about who he is? Is he worthy of our faith, of our trust? And one of the verses, or two of the verses actually at that time that I found that I probably had read, I don't know how many times, but they really were more impactful at that time, and I feel that they're the same now, is Deuteronomy 32, the first 4 verses there, as Moses is speaking to the Israelites for the last time, and he goes and he says, may my teaching drop as the rain, my speech distill as the dew, like gentle rain upon the tender grass and like showers upon the herb. He tells them, what I'm going to tell you is really, it's refreshing to you. You need this. You're going to be better off because of this. This is going to help you. And I think that's true for us today. We need that word. We need to understand God has a message for us, and he is going to refresh us even in and through this time. So then what is his message that he goes on? He says, for I will proclaim the name of the Lord, ascribe greatness to our God. So what is that gentle rain, that dew on the grass? The name of the Lord. Mm-hmm. He deserves all praise. He is great. So that's where it starts. And then verse 4 is the verse I've come back to over and over and over again. When we think about any trial, anything that goes wrong in life, who is God? Well, man, you can't get much more deep theology than verse 4. Because in verse 3 says, ascribe greatness to our God. Verse 4, the rock. Mm-hmm. His work is perfect. For all his ways are justice, a God of faithfulness and without iniquity, just and upright is he. When we go forward then to today, what is our response when we look at with the world and all the things that are going along? God is still the rock. He hasn't changed. His work is still perfect, and God is working in the world today. The problem is for us as believers, we tend to have the wrong priorities and not be working on the same things God is. Yeah. We're often working on our career or things that we enjoy and all these peripheral things where God is working to glorify his name and raise up a people for himself. He is preparing us for eternity, not preparing the world today for us to be more comfortable. And because our priorities are off, because our focus is off, we don't understand what God is doing. We don't understand his work. We obviously question what God's doing. Is God's work perfect? He seems to be failing. If his goal is to make the world a safer place for us, he's doing a terrible job. But stop and look at that and say, if God's intent is to draw attention to himself and soften men's hearts, boy, a lot of people are praying today. Mm-hmm. God has stopped the whole world. Said, look at me. God's work is perfect, and what God is doing is ultimately going to be best. And I honestly believe there'll be people in heaven one day that say, you know what? Thank God for COVID-19, because had God not stopped the world, I would not have opened his word. Right. I absolutely believe there will be thousands and thousands of people that will be their testimony. God stopped the world. I didn't have time for God. God stopped the world so that I would have time for him. And that's why they had the opportunity to accept Christ. So when we look at that idea that our faith and who we have faith in is so important has driven me back to, okay, the world seems to be strange, and I don't know what's going on, but God's work is perfect. He's faithful. He's without iniquity. Some people blame God. So why would God allow this? Well, God's doing something, and it's not malicious. He has no intent to harm us. He's without iniquity. He's just. He's upright. We can trust him. We can trust that, even though I can say with great confidence, I have no idea what's going on. Yeah. But I believe that God does. Yeah. And I trust him. As I study God's word, I know more about who God is, and my faith grows because I understand really who I have trusted. So those two things right now are what I'm doing. Just personally, it's like I want to keep looking at who God is and keep my eyes on him, not on the news. And I've told people, there's a lot of people that probably shouldn't be watching the news. Be
Right.
better off if you ask a friend who is not so fearful.
Right.
Say, just tell
Right.
me what I need to know.
Right. Right.
If I need to not do something or do something, let me know, because I'm not going to watch the news for a little while.
Yeah. It's very important to decide what your limits are and to live within them. It's okay. We think we're not limitless, and only God is that, and so it's best to know
Yep.
what's good for you. So we're praying for you, and I love talking to you. Thanks for the time.
Yep. Good to talk to you guys.